I know that she's a fighter. I know that she's gonna fight for every opportunity. She played incredible, but I made like couple unforced errors in the last.
I am not your tool. Aryna Sabalenka destroys Brigitte Macron in explosive 15-second showdown that has the entire tennis world shaking. Welcome back to Champions Tennisitics, the only channel on the internet that serves you the rawest, most unfiltered truth straight from the baseline to the boardroom. No spin, no censorship, and absolutely no corporate agenda. If you thought the biggest battles in tennis happened between the chalk lines of a Grand Slam court,
Many times, nobody in this world, Russian athletes or Belarusian athletes, support the war. Nobody. How can we support the war?
buckle up tight, because the story we are breaking down for you today has sent genuine, seismic shockwaves crashing through the sporting world, the political establishment, and every single VIP lounge in between. We are talking about a confrontation so explosive, so unexpected, and so perfectly executed that people are still talking about it in hushed, disbelieving tones.
Зачем вам не здесь, спрашивает Арина.
Они это не воспринимают близко к сердцу. Они понимают, что мне нужно это все выбросить, потому что я считаю, что для меня лично, если...
Today, we are going deep, deeper than any channel has gone, into the jaw-dropping, headline-obliterating moment when Aryna Sabalenka, the reigning queen of world tennis, looked Brigitte Macron, the First Lady of France herself, dead in the eye and delivered a 15-second reality check so brutal, so precise, and so utterly devastating that the political establishment is still picking pieces of itself off the floor. Get comfortable. This is the story that is changing everything. To truly understand the magnitude of what happened, you have to understand the world that Aryna Sabalenka inhabits. Professional tennis at the elite level is not simply a sport anymore. It has become a complex, multi-billion-dollar ecosystem where athletic achievement, global branding, political pressure, and social activism collide on a daily basis. Every single time a champion steps onto a podium and lifts a trophy, there is an entire army of politicians, lobbyists, corporate executives, and activist groups lined up behind the cameras, jostling for position, desperate to attach their message, their campaign, their cause to that glittering moment of athletic triumph. It has become an industry of its own, the monetization and politicization of athletic fame. And for years, the machine has churned along smoothly because most athletes, understandably terrified of the backlash, simply comply. They wear the badge, they read the script, they smile for the camera, and they try not to think too hard about whose agenda they are actually pushing. Aryna Sabalenka has never been most athletes. From the very first moment this Belarusian powerhouse burst onto the global tennis scene, it was abundantly clear that she was built from different material entirely. We are talking about a woman who has faced hostility that would have broken lesser competitors. She has been subjected to hostile press conferences designed more like political interrogations than sports interviews, aggressive public pressure to answer for the geopolitical actions of a government she does not control, and a relentless undercurrent of prejudice against her nationality that she has had to claw through on her journey to the absolute summit of women's tennis. Through every single one of those storms, Sabalenka did the same thing. She kept her head down, she kept her fist tight around her racket, and she kept winning.
Thank you, Miami. Thank you for all the support. I'm super grateful to hold this beautiful trophy, and I'm super grateful for all the support, and I don't know.
Because winning, she understood with absolute clarity, is the only language that drowns out the noise. She is a woman who has built her empire on the court, point by brutal point, not in the corridors of political power. And that identity, that fierce, unshakable identity as an athlete first and always, is precisely what made the confrontation with Brigitte Macron so absolutely explosive when it finally came. Let us set the stage properly, because this story deserves that respect. The setting was the kind of high-gloss, high-tension environment where elite sports and elite politics regularly converge. Think immaculately dressed dignitaries, perfectly arranged press opportunities, and the kind of carefully choreographed social maneuvering that goes on behind the scenes of major international sporting events. Brigitte Macron was present in her now familiar role as one of Europe's most influential and highly visible first ladies. She has cultivated a public persona as a passionate advocate for various social causes, and she moves through these spaces with the confidence of someone who has rarely, if ever, refused anything. Her access to power, to media, to the world's biggest stages is essentially unlimited, and she knows it. She arrived at this particular encounter carrying with her what she clearly believed was an offer that no athlete in their right mind would dare to turn down. The request, as it has been reported and widely discussed, was this. Brigitte Macron approached Sabalenka with a proposition to have the world #1 publicly champion and explicitly allow the use of her image and platform in support of LGBT causes at the upcoming major international tournaments.
I know that she's a fighter. I know that she's gonna fight for every opportunity. She played incredible, but I made like couple unforced errors in the last game, and I gave.
Now, on the surface, people in the political world might look at that and think, what is the problem? It is a social cause. It is visibility. It is the kind of thing that generates positive press coverage and positions the athlete as conscious and compassionate. But that surface-level reading fundamentally misunderstands everything about the position Sabalenka occupies and the price she is paid to occupy it. It also completely misreads who Aryna Sabalenka actually is. Because to Sabalenka, the cause itself is almost secondary to the central, non-negotiable principle at stake. The moment you allow your image, your face, the brand you have built through years of blood and sacrifice on the tennis court, to become the vehicle for someone else's political agenda, you are no longer an athlete. You are a prop. You are a tool. And Aryna Sabalenka refuses, with every fiber of her being, to be anyone's tool. Before Brigitte Macron's camp could even get through the full pitch, before the handlers could lay out the campaign materials and talking points, Sabalenka ended it. Not rudely, not with a dramatic scene, but with something far more devastating than any tantrum could ever be. With absolute, ice-cold clarity. Looking directly at the First Lady of France, Aryna Sabalenka delivered 11 words that have since reverberated around the entire planet.
Many times, nobody in this world, Russian athletes or Belarusian athletes, support the war. Nobody. How can we support the war? Nobody. No normal.
I am an athlete, not a tool for your political agenda. That was it. 15 seconds. Give or take. Done. Finished. Non-negotiable. Pause and sit with those 11 words for a moment, because they deserve it. I am an athlete, not a tool for your political agenda. There is no ambiguity in that statement. There is no diplomatic wiggle room. No, let me think about it. No, I appreciate the offer, but it is a complete, total, and utterly final rejection delivered with the same precision and power that Sabalenka brings to her forehand. She did not attack the cause. She did not express any hatred or animus toward the First Lady personally. She simply, magnificently, defined herself on her own terms and refused to allow that definition to be overwritten by political convenience. In doing so, she exposed one of the most uncomfortable truths that the political establishment tries desperately to keep buried: that athletes are human beings with full autonomy, not resources to be deployed whenever a powerful person decides they need a famous face for their latest campaign. The immediate aftermath, according to sources with direct knowledge of the encounter, was exactly as delicious as you are imagining. Brigitte Macron was reportedly furious. And you have to understand why, because this is crucial to grasping the full scale of what Sabalenka achieved in those 15 seconds. People in Macron's position operate within a world of almost constant deference. Their phone calls get answered immediately. Their requests are treated as commands. The celebrities and public figures in their orbit fall over themselves to be associated with the prestige and power of the Élysée Palace. To be flatly, calmly, and publicly refused by a tennis player, to have your request characterized as a political agenda being imposed on an unwilling athlete, that is not just a rejection of a campaign. That is a fundamental challenge to the entire power dynamic that political figures rely on when they approach athletes. The tension in the room was, by all accounts, genuinely electric. Macron's entourage stood in stunned silence. This was not in the script. This was not supposed to happen. And here is where the story gets even more fascinating, because Sabalenka's defiance did not occur in a vacuum. It detonated inside an already simmering global conversation about the relationship between professional sports and political activism. For the last decade, the pressure on athletes to use their platforms for political and social causes has escalated dramatically. What began as organic, genuine acts of individual conscience, athletes speaking from personal experience on issues that touched their own lives directly, has metastasized into a full-blown industry of organized political pressure. Corporations threaten to pull sponsorships. Tournament organizers implement policies that pressure athletes to take political stances. Media organizations punish athletes with hostile coverage if they refuse to toe a particular ideological line. The message, delivered in 100 subtle and not-so-subtle ways, is always the same. Play ball with our agenda, or we will make your life very difficult. Sabalenka has been on the receiving end of versions of this pressure for years, and her response has always been consistent. She plays tennis. Extraordinary, world-class, ruthless tennis. She keeps her politics, whatever they may be, strictly private. She refuses to be baited into political statements at press conferences. She maintains, with fierce discipline, the separation between her role as an athlete and the chaotic, often exploitative demands of the political world. That philosophy, which she has maintained under genuinely difficult circumstances given her Belarusian nationality and the international scrutiny that comes with it, was exactly what she was defending when she faced down Brigitte Macron. This was not a snap decision made in a heated moment. This was the full expression of a principle Sabalenka has lived by her entire professional career. The public reaction when news of the encounter began to spread was absolutely extraordinary. The internet, which has the attention span of a hummingbird on energy drinks when it comes to most celebrity controversies, stopped and stared. This story hit differently, because it was not simply about tennis, and it was not simply about politics. It was about something that hundreds of millions of people feel in their bones every single day. The exhaustion of watching the things they love get hijacked and turned into vehicles for political messaging they never asked for. Sports fans around the world, people who turn to tennis and football and basketball precisely to escape the relentless, grinding weight of political discourse, erupted in a roar of approval for Sabalenka that shook social media to its foundations. Twitter and X were immediately overrun with fans calling Sabalenka a hero, a queen, a pioneer. Instagram posts went viral within minutes. TikTok videos analyzing and celebrating her 11-word statement racked up views at a rate that left the algorithm gasping. The phrase, "I am an athlete, not a tool for your political agenda," became one of the most shared quotes across the entire internet almost overnight. And the demographic breakdown of the support was remarkable. This was not a politically partisan moment where one side cheered and the other booed. The support came from across the political spectrum, from conservatives who believe in keeping politics out of sports, from liberals who believe in individual autonomy and resisting institutional pressure, from politically disengaged fans who simply love tennis and wanted to stay tennis. Sabalenka unified an extraordinarily diverse audience under one shared principle. Athletes have the right to be athletes. Meanwhile, behind the closed doors of Europe's tennis establishment, the panic is reportedly very real. Roland Garros, the French Open, is just around the corner, and tournament organizers are acutely aware of what Sabalenka's stand represents as a potential precedent. Because here is the nightmare scenario keeping those organizers awake at night. What if she is the first domino? What if other top players, who have privately harbored the same frustrations but lacked either the courage or the leverage to act on them, look at what Sabalenka has done and decide to follow? The entire system of political and social activism integration into professional tennis is built on athlete compliance. Remove that compliance and the entire structure collapses. Sabalenka just demonstrated that the most dominant player on the tour can say no, loudly, to the first lady of the host nation of the French Open, and the sky does not fall. The corporate angle of this story is equally compelling and, in some ways, even more consequential. Reports have surfaced suggesting that certain politically connected sponsors tied to the French establishment have made noises about reviewing their relationships with tournaments if Sabalenka is not in some way censured or made to account for her response. Think about the audacity of that position for a moment. Sponsors are allegedly threatening financial pressure against tournaments because a tennis player declined to be used for a political campaign. That is not advocacy. That is coercion. And it reveals, more nakedly than anything else in this entire story, exactly what Sabalenka was right to resist. The whole edifice of athlete political activation is not built on genuine care for causes. It is built on power and leverage and the exploitation of athletic fame for external agendas. Sabalenka saw it clearly and named it precisely. She called it a tool, because that is exactly what it is. But here is what makes Aryna Sabalenka virtually untouchable in this situation, and why the threats and the pressure and the media spin are ultimately going to amount to very little. Her power does not come from political favor. It does not come from corporate goodwill. It does not come from the approval of the Macron administration or the French Tennis Federation or any sponsor's marketing budget. Her power comes from that devastating, howitzer-like forehand. Her power comes from the serve that clocks over 120 miles per hour. Her power comes from an engine of competitive will that has driven her to the top of women's tennis and kept her there while simultaneously navigating more external pressure than virtually any other player on tour. You cannot cancel someone like that. You cannot sideline them, deplatform them, or economically coerce them into silence. The only way to beat Aryna Sabalenka is to outplay her on the court, and nobody is doing that with any consistency right now. Looking ahead at the coming weeks and months, the theatrical intrigue of this situation is only going to intensify. Roland Garros is approaching, and the prospect of Sabalenka competing in France at the French Open on the clay courts that are the spiritual home of European tennis. In the aftermath of this extraordinary confrontation with the First Lady of France is the kind of storyline that makes television executives weep with joy. Every press conference she holds on French soil will be treated like a political event. Every match she plays will carry an additional charge. The French crowd, which can be one of the most passionate and volatile audiences in all of tennis, will be divided and electric. Some will jeer, channeling the wounded pride of the establishment. Many more, fueled by the viral explosion of global support for her stand, will cheer her as a champion of athletic freedom. And Sabalenka, if you know anything about her at all, will thrive in every single second of it. This is a woman who has used hostility as jet fuel her entire career. She does not wilt under pressure. She detonates. The French Open clay, the political circus surrounding it, the wounded feelings of the First Lady, the empty threats of politically connected sponsors, all of it will be filed neatly into the section of her brain that converts external negativity into on-court ferocity. The player who told Brigitte Macron, "I am an athlete, not a tool for your political agenda," is going to walk onto the courts of Roland Garros, toss that ball into the air, and serve it into the corner with the same cold, devastating precision she brought to that 15-second confrontation. And when she wins, and based on her current dominance the odds are very much in her favor, the statement will be complete. No political campaign needed. No borrowed platform required. Just the pure, undeniable, inarguable language of Grand Slam trophies. This moment, this extraordinary, history-making 15-second exchange between a tennis champion and the First Lady of France is going to be studied and referenced for years. It will be cited in conversations about athlete autonomy. It will be discussed in sports marketing boardrooms. It will appear in think pieces and documentaries about the intersection of sports and politics. Because Sabalenka did not just stand up for herself. She stood up for an entire generation of athletes who have been ground down by the machinery of political activation. She drew a line in the clay so deep and so clear that everyone on both sides of the political divide could see it from a mile away. And in doing so, she transformed herself from being merely the world's best tennis player into something considerably larger. A symbol of what it looks like to know exactly who you are, to value that identity above all external pressure, and to defend it with quiet, magnificent, absolutely non-negotiable courage. Brigitte Macron wanted to use Aryna Sabalenka's face to advance a political cause. What she got instead was a masterclass in dignity, in self-definition, and in the kind of real power that no political office can grant and no sponsor can take away. The First Lady of France walked into that meeting expecting a yes, and walked out having received the most polite, most devastating, most globally consequential no in the recent history of professional tennis. Game, set, match. Sabalenka wins. Again. Now, champions Tennisitics family. It is your turn, and we genuinely want to hear from you, because this debate is raging everywhere, and your voice is the one that matters most to us. Do you think Aryna Sabalenka was absolutely right to shut down Brigitte Macron's political request and defend her identity as an athlete above all else? Or do you believe that someone with Sabalenka's massive global platform carries an obligation to use it for social causes? even when those causes come packaged in political wrappers. Drop your most honest, most unfiltered, most passionate thoughts in the comments section right now, because we read every single one, and we want this conversation to be as big and as loud as it deserves to be. If this deep dive fired you up and gave you something to think about, show us some love and smash that like button, because it genuinely helps this channel keep bringing you the stories that everyone else is too afraid to touch. Hit subscribe and ring that notification bell so you are always first in line when the next explosion goes off. Because on Champions Tennisitics, the drama never sleeps, the truth never hides, and we will always be right here, serving it to you straight. Until next time, keep your eye on the ball, keep your spirit unbreakable, and we will see you right back here on the court.
Incredible tennis and what a match.
Said it many times. Nobody in this world, Russian athletes or Belarusian athletes, support the war. Nobody. How can we support the war? Nobody. No.